era of a central bank digital currency, when we are closer to the final changes in the economy, doubting Ripple's project and comparing it with newcomers is actually okay. But you actually have to understand payments is a giant market, and retail digital payments itself is a huge market, so competition is welcome. But just imagine this. Everyone is coming on a new decentralized infrastructure, moving away from the centralized organizations like SWIFT. So, the most important point to be noted is that central banks are the concerned authority for payments. And how do you see them respond? In this document, you have Ripple on the spotlight. I remind you, this is the news for the central bank community. So, if you doubt whether Ripple have the head start with others or the competitors in the same space who are coming, newcomers with new technology, new type of networks, then you are kind of blinding yourself by closing your eyes to these truth and facts. Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where we discuss crypto and science behind investing regularly. Fundamentals are changing, and Ripple is increasing its momentum in the race of adoption by enabling services like these. And Ripple partners are emerging as front runners in the race of payment solutions. So, the next level or next vertical will also be emerging on RippleNet, which is the smart contracts. And as we move into the future, the updates for central banks are important because we have to actually understand that to see what kind of progress is happening, and we can actually see that on a daily basis by looking at the recent updates and the current scenario and comparing them with the documents issued for central banks or by central banks. Then we'll understand how this change is actually evolving. Here Money Match is actually providing a free service towards India. How? Because they are already partnered with RippleNet. Now, as they are in the RippleNet, now they can actually offer this international payments for free. So, this is just for 1 day, but you can actually see that this is kind of inviting someone new to the platform, and this is a way of marketing themselves. And say the next time they are saying the fee will be just $1 or $2 compared to $5 or $6 in Western Union or other area, they are obviously going to opt for the option which is cost effective for them, right? So, and at the same time, you can actually see, yesterday's documents, we actually showed you how companies, financial institutions are moving into cloud-based solutions. And now we can actually see more of that happening. If you actually want to get more of that info, you can actually go and check this out. The link is here in Twitter. It's Volunteer Technologies. Now, this one from Unbearable Guy 123 actually shows 4 days is going to wipe the flow with Ethereum. So when we talk about the smart contracts, this is highlighting a tweet from David Schwartz. I'm still not fully convinced that smart contracts are going to be a big deal, meaning he's actually looking at the area where smart contracts can be built on a tokenless system. Meaning, say, if you are using Codius or other platforms, that way you don't have a token for a smart contract. But using that smart contract, if you are exchanging value or returning value, then you need an asset. Otherwise, you don't actually need that for just the contract purpose. Now, yes, we have other fundamentals too, which is actually evolving in a particular way. But before jumping into that, I would like to go through these documents, which kind of shows you the background, where we are and how we are actually moving forward. Because the new documents and the old documents, when you're comparing it and understanding the progress, you can actually understand that it is so easy to see the future. Global payments 2020 to 2030 is a shift, and in this document they actually talk about the cryptocurrencies too. So we'll go through that. First, this is the white paper enabling innovation through payments platform transformation. So in this one, when you actually come to the cross-border area, which is where we should start with, but before starting that, I'll have to actually give you guys the background why we are directly jumping into that area. To key market drivers to support payments platform transformation. And thus, I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination. And it kind of, adjusts with what Ripple, the company, is doing. They're looking at where the money is going and where the opportunities lies. So when we say payments, instant payments are providing a lot bigger opportunity for many companies to compete central bank documents or supranational organizations like BIAs, IMFs document, when we go through that, we also see that winner takes it all. But when you just hear that, don't get confused. Say there will be a lot of new organizations coming in, competing, taking a bit of this market share. But imagine payments are associated with central banks. And if these payments are to be connected with the central banks, and central banks are on a interoperability protocol like IntelliJ protocol, then obviously, even if there are a lot of solutions, they will have to come through that ILP at one point, right? And if they are operating on a different currency, say it can be a domestic central bank digital currency, it can be a domestic bank token, whatever it is, they'll have to actually bridge that into the central bank digital currency. So at that particular point, ILP can actually touch XRP ledger. We have actually talked about that previously, so we are not going into much depth. Now here, for cross-border payments, you can see number of individuals, businesses and organizations depend on the ability to send and receive money across national borders. It's a huge opportunity, and a lot of guys are actually coming in. But the main technology which we are talking from, a lot of documents from last 1 week, 2 week, 1 month, is actually talking about distributed ledger technology. And when they are talking about DLT, they're giving you the example as Ripple. Now, if we can actually say there are other providers who can actually do this, but as of now, the head start which this company have is enormous, because they are they have contacts with 40 to 50 central banks across the world, giant banking institutions. Say top 35 banks among the top 100 is partnered with Ripple. If you look at payment solutions like Visa, MasterCard, Amex, a lot of them are working with Ripple. So there is a lot of difference in this one, right? So the pressure on margins, meaning current payment system, if you are going to do that, based on the correspondent banking network, you will have to pay fees for each correspondent banks, because they are processing it. They won't be processing it for free, right, if it is going through them. So in that one, competition is increasing just by reducing the counterparty. The third party is actually being taken out from that. The network nodes are reduced and the payment is becoming efficient. Now, as we move ahead, we can actually see DLT is placed in one among the new technologies like machine learning, AI and all. And DLT is they are still highlighting it is in the early stages of adoption. Blockchain technology and distributed ledger systems have demonstrated clear potential for optimization of process operation that involve decentralized networks such as capital markets, trade finance, cross-border payments. And when I say this, keep this in mind. When they say DLT, distributed ledger technology, they already gave you the example for that DLT technology, like what? Like Ripple. And it's also what? And fintech service offerings like TransferWise for payment solution, right? So automatically, these companies will be tied up at one point. They will actually come to this one. We previously talked about DTCC, where they process like $2 quadrillion in a year. So their back end processes, they need a lot of scalability there. One, and then they need a lot of frictionless effect for those settlements, security settlement. So in that area, you actually have lot to move. Now, there is no way you can survive in a globalized internet economy with systems that are built for batch overnight updates. It is ridiculous. That is based on the previous banking system, traditional or legacy banking system. Now, when we actually move into this one, that's digital payment strategy for US retail banks, we can actually see in the bottom here in this area, they're talking about a Ripple and Zoom. So these are new startups. Now this document is back in 2018, and it talks about Ripple as a startup. Still, they're talking like it has a lot of potential. It is coming up with the next generation technology. So it is actually moving money in a way which legacy systems cannot do that. So if banks are to win against non-bank players, they need to create compelling and competitive digital payment offerings. So in order to do that, they'll first have to increase the speed of the transactions, then reduce the fees. So that is where you need a settlement asset to do that, right? And then this research paper actually shows you cross-border platforms, the implications of distributed ledger technology. Now, we just saw when we talk about DLT in the payment sector for banks, financial institutions, central banks, they are considering an example of Ripple directly, not any other projects. So that is kind of something which you have to actually consider. Now, within the introduction here, when you come into the findings, suggests that DLT can play a role at removing inefficiencies and promoting financial inclusion in developing countries by being used as a settlement mechanism and as a standard communications channel, as a way of consolidating data located within boundaries of different platforms. So that is moving from one ledger of information of value to another one. So here, keep an eye on this settlement mechanism. They are also talking about that one. All the different kind of research is kind of ending at this particular area, and you can actually see projects such as Ripple currently entering the interbank cross-border payments market. So wherever you are going in relation to this particular aspect scope, you're actually seeing that. And why that is happening? Because central banks are the central authority for payments in any country, right? So now when Ripple is in contact or touch with 40 to 50 central banks, you can actually expect something else happening here. Now, in this document, when we say Ripple is in spotlight, it's about the presentation of Dilip Rao towards the central banks. Now when we directly jump into that one, we can actually see a lot more. But in the spotlight, how they are highlighting Ripple, Ripple has pioneered the application of DLT and crypto assets to the real world problems since 2012. Leveraging this experience, Dilip Rao is actually giving them a highlight about how to actually manage this. So before jumping into that one, this area shows that Ripple and fintech giant Finastra, now Finastra is really a giant, right? They actually said to collaborate on cross-border payments. The partnership will involve bringing Ripple's blockchain network, RippleNet, to financial institutions using Finastra's payment solution. So that's again opening up a giant market there. Now this is on central bank news, right? So it's not like it's gonna happen. It can happen. It may happen. It's not like that. It will happen. It's something like that. Now, if you actually read through this, you'll actually understand they're actually talking about what are the existing problems and how you can actually solve these problems. So in the problems area, or the motivation for why they are doing this, they are actually highlighting domestic financial inclusion, payments infrastructure, and then global tokenized economy. Now when we talk about a central bank digital currency, just saw that it can actually be within 2020, just in 6 months this can be coming in our way. And when we actually see that, they're actually talking about how central banks can actually do that on a RippleNet. Now here they talk about the solving the domestic financial inclusion issue. They're talking about a central bank digital currency, and then they're talking about synthetic central bank digital currency, which is highlighted by IMF also. Now in our channel, I think we are the first who talked about a central bank digital currency, which is a digital currency of central bank but issued by a private entity and maintained by a private entity. Just every report goes to the central bank. Now we won't be actually jumping more into central bank digital currency of synthetic model. Instead, we will be looking at the other aspects of how it can be issued. Like a CBDC issued by one country may be accepted by the citizens of other countries based on the acceptability of the currency in traditional market. However, transacting across border is more challenging. Interoperability of transaction, liquidity for exchange tokens, and the regulatory clarity needs to be there. And Ripple has addressed many of these challenges in our cross-border platform RippleNet, which offers both fiat liquidity and on-demand liquidity using crypto asset XRP. Now, think this is on payment news, which is for central banks, right? Now, when you come to the bottom, you can actually understand how they intend to actually do this. When they're actually talking about central bank digital currencies, when we read this, we'll get a bit more clarity. RippleNet rulebook ensures consistency in messaging standards and operating protocol, as well as exchange and the data transparency of data, service levels, and fees. So it's unlike others. When we are moving into ISO 20022, this is kind of the important area, right? So now when we actually look at the central bank digital currencies and issuing those, we can actually understand global token friendly platforms such as RippleNet and Xpring, which is another initiative on the XRP ledger, may offer ways for central banks to enable their fiat CBDCs to be exchanged with other CBDCs or commercial banks to create markets in their private bank tokens for global utility. So this cannot be actually neglected, that central banks will have their tokens, commercial banks will have their tokens, whereas commercial banks value will be called as tokens excuse me, whereas for central banks it will be known as central bank digital currencies. The currency fiat itself will be like digital dollar, digital euro and all, but JPM coin, that's just an example of how commercial banks can come up with their own tokens, which will then be bridged to the central bank digital currency. So think, wherever it is exchanging from one ledger to another, from one value to another value, they actually need a bridge asset, and that is happening. Now in the spotlight, you also have to highlight that when they are featuring the other one, it's actually from e-krona project, a central bank project, right? Then you have Ripple here. So you have to actually understand the level of importance given to this particular project by the central banks, because this is kind of changing everything. Now in the table here, you can actually see basis of value, validation mechanism and all, and the bottom you give examples like Bitcoin, Ether and XRP. But when you actually look at this one, scalability, then control, and third, basis of value, which is utility, you can't get that utility from Bitcoin or Ether as of now, right? And the scalability is kind of way far for them to catch up with. And in relation to central banks and payments, they have a lot of work to do. Whereas in private coins, as I told, you can see JPM coin. So when we actually talk about that, you can actually see if it is a crypto asset or a digital asset which is going to be used for a ledger like ILP, then the asset, it's not only because XRP is the native asset of XRP ledger, but the only asset which can actually provide this use case there, right? When we talk about a synthetic central bank digital currency and how it should be moving through the economy, you can actually see XRP touching it all around the corner. Now in the next document, which is also a research publication, it actually shows you Mind Your Credit, assessing the health of RippleNet credit network. So they are actually talking about RippleNet as a network where you can transfer IOUs. So that is how the banking network currently works. So it actually highlights how the XRP is actually moved from one area to another, which is using exchanges. And as we move into a central bank digital currency era, this is becoming more of a reality. How we are managing the wallets, it can be Ripple's wallet or it can be even other wallets, right? So as we move into a central bank digital currency era, which is not far ahead, it's coming really near to us. It looks like it's really close enough. Michael actually sent me these, and it's kind of really important to understand as the G20 is going to roll out that, and chances are high for that. UK Central Bank is discussing the possibility of launching a digital currency according to its chief. Now previously we also heard it from the last chief that it's gonna be there because they don't consider a dollar as a reserve now. They don't need it as a reserve now because it's being used as a weapon. Now that's not my words, it's from the politicians and the regulators itself, directly from them, right? So when we actually see these stuffs emerging, and when you have doubts like other projects are coming out, like many of them are commenting yesterday in a talk like related to Crypto Aries video, which was actually related to a project where they don't actually use like a crypto asset to settle the transaction. Instead they were actually using a new mechanism, which is kind of it's like it's mine and changing to another name. So it's like a new technology there. But what you have to understand is their target is banks, central banks, financial institutions, similarly to that of Ripple. But the head start which Ripple the company have, and the connections like BIS, IMF, World Bank, all the central banks, 40-50 major central banks, and the financial institutions like 350 financial institutions across the board, like 100 countries. You don't actually have to look back. Now, as I told, this is a giant market. Competitors will be there, but the winner takes it all. Meaning, if the new infrastructure is laid out on Ledger protocol, then there is nothing to deal with. When you see interoperability layers like say Quant network over Ledger, many still have doubt whether this interledger will be taken or that over Ledger. Simple answer is central banks. What they do, first have to look at that. If you're looking at payments, you have to actually look at what central banks are doing. Now, say Quant is taken over, say in other areas of financial institutions, Overledger is taking a lot of customers. But these has to be actually in touch with the central banks. So at one point, it has to actually come into the ILP. So majority, I assume, will be on ILP, and some who are outside ILP on different networks will have to actually come into ILP. So for me, it's actually clear why I'm in this asset, how long I will be in this asset. And as we see the potential changing, the area like this is in Europe, Binance is actually powering a debit card, crypto debit card in Europe. So it's like you can actually use that there. And automatically, as we see the changes happening, the regulators and governments are coming in. They are going to put in more regulatory clarity. They're going to go and check transaction. They want to take out all the illegal transactions. So automatically, when these are happening in the cryptocurrencies arena, when I look at XRP, I don't consider it like a crypto asset like this or a cryptocurrencies like this. It's entirely different. It was made for banks, financial institutions, and other regulated customers, not like just the retail guys. So illegal transactions which will be happening in this network will be minimal or negligible considered to other networks. Guys, if you like the content, do hit that like button, and if you're new here, do support the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye for now.